someplace in Yeovil during the Sekunjalo concert, or the Joburg Zoo, for example, for the annual Joburg Zoo Festival. You know, you see all people from all regions of Johannesburg, all shades and queers and everything, and you just knew that you live in the most exciting city in the world. I think media entities have gotten lazy. You know, I think they've gotten lazy in the newsrooms. They've gotten lazy in the strategy sessions in terms of like radio and broadcasting.
August is celebrated as the month where we are focusing on women, phenomenal women in South Africa, women that are making a difference, women that are empowering others. On this special show, we are joined by my dear friend, the Trouble Rouser, and many other lexicon that I can throw in. Penny Lebyane, dear friend, how are you? Welcome to Gauteng Live.
Thank you. How are you, Baba?
I'm good and excited. Finally, we got you.
Did you call me the Trouble Rouser?
We'll get into that. Finally, we got you, and we you are now in the show. The original AmaGP ambassador.
Yes.
Back then, when the influencer business was not something that a papelwa, you were out there, you know, doing your things. Once again, welcome to Gauteng Live, and thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. You know, I don't really know where to start with you because you are just such a multidimensional person. Fresh from the Women's Parliament session in Cape Town. But before we get there and your AmaGP role, I want to rewind almost donkey years back, you know, in the streets of Soweto, you know, at a time tear gas were fashionable, young people were defending their communities, their spaces, mothers were in the forefront out there. And there is Penny, you know, in the streets being exposed to all of this. How did that shape you now into the career woman, the philanthropy, the entrepreneur, and the media guru that you are in? That moment and that whole commotion, Kamoki di tear gas, Kamoki bo Brenda Fassi, they are doing their thing.
Well, growing up in Soweto, I mean, I came to Soweto, I think at 13. I came to Soweto to go to high school. So, Kifitlile as a young woman from Bushbuckridge, and you know, we were dabbling between Katlehong and the East Rand and Soweto because we had some family that would come visit all the time, and eventually my parents' house got approved, Kopimville, and now we were going to be Soweto residents. So, I mean, I was bright-eyed. It was just exciting to be in Soweto, driving on it's Chris Hani Baragwanath now.
Yes,
I can't even remember what it was called, but was it Putnik, something like that? And it was quite a popular street. Soweto College of Education on one side, my high school on the other side, Tabajabula in Klipspruit. So it was just a vibrant space. It had a vibrant energy about it. You know, you would be on that road. Yes, you'd see Brenda Fassie passing in her drop top somewhere. And then I lived in Zone 4. The area was called California. Stix Morewa lived down the road. Sipo Stix Mabuse lived on one section. Glenn Lewis lived on another.
And he doesn't stop telling everybody about him, as you know him.
As Glenn would do. You know, I mean, a lot of people were from there. Bonnie Mbuli is from there. Azania Musaka is from there. The Mazwai sisters are from there. Nomsa Tandiswa and Ziki from there. But then at the same time, there's people like Liz Kumalo, who used to be the editor of Drum Magazine. You know, my back back opposite neighbor. My goodness, how can I forget him? He used to write for Drum Magazine as well, one of the feature writers. So there were just amazing people like that. And those are people that I'm mentioning that people can know. But next door, Osana was a teacher in Midlands and she used to teach cricket.
Yeah.
So, the whole development of cricket, of kids playing cricket in the township, she was one of those women who used to be part of that. So contributed immensely to the love of cricket in the township. And at the same time, you had notorious thugs like Sipos Gebengu down the road from where I lived in Zone 5, Zone 4. And then you'd hear about Jeff Brown, Tebogang Rembola giving people a hard time.
Yeah.
So that's Soweto for you.
And how does that juxtapose Pens with, a little years earlier, coming from Bushbuck Bridge, Kwankwa.
Nkwankwa is in Tanin, and the people of Tanin will kill you. It's in Limpopo, they'll kill you.
Bushbuck Ridge and then you had to double up via Katlehong so that you can have a soft landing in Soweto.
Well, so to say.
The contrast and getting in there and being told we are going to Johannesburg, where Kwandonga's Yadum.
So, my story with Soweto is that I'm actually, when I come at 13, it's my second, I come back. Because my parents lived in Deep Kloof, in Shawelo, I think when I was like a year or two. Because my dad was already working here, had friends from Shawelo who went to school with him in Orobalani in the Eastern Transvaal, today, modern day Nelspruit and all of that. Yeah. And Tulamahash and all of that. And then he would come to start to work here. And he lived rented in one of the friends' homes. So I lived there with them when I was like a year or so. Apparently I was too energetic, too vibrant, breaking eggs. Go dining room. And then my grandparents, pulled me back and they sent me back to live with them. So it was just, it always just had this great energy. But coming in as a 13-year-old, going to high school, in the area where we lived, Golf Cooper had just built these, sharks. I don't know what we'd call them now. They were not like RDPs, but they were not big houses like Selection Park, Zone 7 houses or best.
But
so
they
were
they had big windows.
They had big windows. Like they had an inside toilet.
Yeah.
And you had a lounge and a dining room type of a setup. So it was a very interesting time also in our transition because this is 88, 89. Just before we go into 1990 and then South Africa is gonna change. So Soweto is that. But you hear that Winnie Mandela doesn't live far from where you are in Orlando. I think as a kid, I was obviously not as conscious to a lot of things politically, but because of news, television, newspapers, and radio, you're starting to understand that something's just not right, but something's going on. So you're that young girl there who's trying to make life for yourself. So you're in a social club, you're in a dance club, you are participating in beauty pageants in the township. You're going to Shawelo, to Orlando, to participate in things like that. You're trying to be a teenager through it. So it was a beautiful experience, I must say.
And how did that, shape, your outlook to life? Now you are multifaceted. At school, you actually don't have a categorization. You are not boxed into this. Your grades are good. Your sports activities are good.
Yes, culturally, you're part of the cultural.
Yes,
go choir. Community choir.
To manage, the voice. Gardening, you are watering your garden in the school.
Home economics, you're learning to bake. It's a sewing.
To what extent Pens have that, shaped how, your outlook to life and how now it still continues to be difficult to box you?
I think it gave me so much freedom. I think combined with like coming from Bushbuck Ridge, where my grandparents, had were subsistence farmers. So I know nuts come from the ground.
Yes.
I know the difference between nuts and beans and the
Okay.
different types of beans, sugar beans and all of
Okay.
that. So I know sugar cane makes sugar.
Sugar.
I know sweet potato is different from and mango season. So I knew all of those things. And then I come to the township, which has a different vibrancy and different energy. And being exposed to all of those things, it just made me believe that I can become someone of significance, that I can contribute positively, to my family for starters, to the country. I just felt like I'm just not going to be like some girl who was in high school who was pretty and that's just that. And then I could, and television also just exposed me to a different world, seeing people like Usnakedi Ribani, Felicia Mabuza Sattel, listening to radio, hearing Shara Twala, Zandile Nzalos, or Temba Madumos from Bob TV at the time, Brenda Society. So you kind of just felt like the world is closer. You're closer to things. I mean, if you read about someone in City Press and then there you are, stop, haibo. Ashule sticks, but sticks murao o feta or pitom simanulo cheka kamu or Dr. Kumalo, So you kind of think everything's possible. And then I think when I was in grade 11, I participated in Miss Soweto. That just really opened it up, because then I was listening to Radio Bob, and then all the people from Mafikeng came to Joburg because they were the sponsor. And then at the same time then everyone was there. Arthur Mafokate, who's Mr. Soweto, was there. Other superstars, other girls that I'd seen in magazines, True Love Drum. My mom loved it. True Love Drum, Tribute Magazine, Pace. There's no magazine we didn't buy. Tandy. We would have all of those things. So that kind of stuff just made it possible that, okay, if these people that you read about and these are people who are important, and they influence pop culture. Now I have the language for it. I didn't have the language for it. So I was like, okay, I could be there, but I want to be also respected and different and taken serious. So you took a little bit of this and that too.
And I'm glad you mentioned Bob TV, Radio Bob, and
I did it because I know you're from Mafikeng.
Coming from Maftown and being the backdrop of our life, and knowing that this platforms actually reaches Soweto, and with those media channels, and it was multimedia, because next door it's somebody from City Press. Kamo, you are listening to Radio Bob with their syndicated music in apartheid South Africa that is sanctioned. So the traditional South Africa doesn't have access to the sounds, to these movies that we're seeing. Kamo, you are exposed to all these personalities. Did that shape ultimately your direction of being in the media space, and also knowing that the media space actually works with multiplicity, because you will then be able to utilize that grounding to deal with different angles that the media requires?
Yeah, it did shape, because I was exposed to, like I said, someone, Brakeza, who lived back opposite of us, was a writer for Drum Magazine. So I understood that this feature writing, and my dad was those dads who arrived at home with Star and Sowetan under his arm, and then 3 houses from my house, one of my friends' dad worked for the Star, but he worked in the printing room, and it was just so fascinating that I think one time we went to go visit where he works. That they actually print newspapers. Meanwhile, opposite, there's actually the area where we lived was a lot of people who worked for Woolworths. They worked for retail stores. I think the Woolworths got into this deal with Gulf Cooper to subsidize some of their employees. So there's a lot of people who worked for Woolworths, Pick and Pay, and you understood that actually they're this management level. They're not just not just cashiers, but they're they're merchandisers and all of those things. So when you live in a melting pot, and when I think about it, our parents, I think at the time they were in their mid-30s into their early 40s type of thing. You realize that these were black people who they're not middle class, but but at the same time, they didn't qualify for government.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they wouldn't qualify for RDPs now.
What is called
the missing middle. Yeah. So you sat there and you realize that these people, I think the lady back opposite us Queen worked a Lutulu house or something like that. Shell House back then. Yeah, she was like a receptionist or something like that. Yeah. And then obviously also within the greater Pimville Zone 5, one of my mom's friends worked for Young Women's Network, which was the precursor to the Commission of Gender Equality. So you're exposed to a lot of content and information that involves writing, magazine, which is media on its own, and then you're consuming radio and television at the same time, but they're the same thing, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
And then there's just like these people who are like, in communications, or they're doing at the time, JVs, joint ventures. Yeah. So this is the precursor of what is today BEE. Yeah.
Yes,
so, I got exposed to all of those things between 16 and 18. And I'm like, South Africa, something is happening.
There's a change.
There's a change here. Yeah. So I could, it really helped me to navigate. Like I knew I wanted to get in communications because then I pursued like studying PR. Yeah. But I was so conscious of it. For example, I worked for KPMG as a receptionist, and I was like, yeah, but this is like an auditing company, whatever. This is not going to contribute to my communication my communication journey. Yes. So I can't be full time. Why am I here?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but I mean, and how I ended up there is because the guy that I worked for before was putting together the deals, but he was in communications. Yes. He came from like a HR session, with another department, and then they brought him to. And then I was like, no, I don't think I want to stay here, because let's say I stay here. What do I do? I must become an auditor. No. I don't want to become an auditor.
So, but it was
experiential learning.
Yeah.
But all of that exposed me, and it put me in the sense of like what was happening in the CBD at the time. Yeah. Obviously my radio career starts with, what is Josie FM now. Yeah. But at the time it was Soweto Community Radio, which was training young people. And I do that at like grade 11, just before I start my grade 12. But I don't work for them full time in Dube. And then the following year, they officially now issue these community licenses. Voice of Soweto comes into the picture. And it happens to be right in the middle of Johannesburg, in the CBD. Yeah. And I'm like, this is it. At that time, I was already working part-time as a receptionist at the Carlton Center. Yes. So Voice of Soweto is on Fox Street, is next door down the street. So I finished my daytime job. I go there. And now my radio dream becomes like a reality. Because now, obviously, when I was in grade 11, I couldn't commit full time because I had my trick coming up. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, this is what's going to happen now. I'm going to go to this Voice of Soweto thing on weekend. So all these things that I thought you could be on radio, you could be on television, you could talk on the mic.
Manifesting.
Yeah, manifest. It's literally, it's like that. And then remember, I had already met Nothemba Madumo, Tish Mataz, Ben
Diko. In Soweto.
Yeah, I was already entered Soweto, and I'm thinking, actually, this stuff is possible. Yeah. So that space and that energy and that kind of exposure made it seem very, very possible. Yeah.
Penny, let's now look at that whole media ecosystem back then. You were exposed to the print, the dad coming with the newspaper, radio broadcasting, and a very delicate period, the transition to the early 90s, characterized by highly sponsored states misinformation, that actually were aimed at the communities and the environment we were in. But the platform still, to a certain extent, remain authentic, advocating. Would you agree with me that you could still trust that newspaper that the dad came through when Baholo said, no, that characterized the environment, and juxtaposing it to now, where all the myths are in misinformation and all this continues, and back then the platforms were actually limited and restricted, but they continue to be authentic. Your reflection on the two periods?
I think there was a commitment from a lot of practitioners in the media to sort of like not just report responsibly, but really to be the voices of the voiceless in the community.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember someone like Agri Cluster, you know,
The
his
legendary,
impact, you know, in the journalism, and him and his generation. So the
Yes.
Sowetan really represented that. And then when you also think of Bontate Jotlhole, who were like in the newsrooms of some of the newspapers, you know, you even though you didn't, I didn't have strong insight of political consciousness that I have now, but I realized the kind of work that they were doing in the kind of writing. I mean, Tribute Magazine used to be one of my favorite. They would have long articles where you like really read about the impact of different people, from young people, whether it's a young person winning a scholarship to go study abroad. They would give you a context of who they are, what kind of family they came from, their background, what their dreams, and you could envision the possibility when you read. You were not made to believe that you know, Penny is a special case. No, you were made to realize that it takes hard work, it takes dedication, it takes family support. You were inspired. I was constantly inspired you know, by that. And then I mean, I remember the return of exilees, you know, reading about it in the news, and then you're hearing about these people who some were literally in the middle of nowhere, but some went and studied. Absolutely. And they were coming back, and they wanted to do amazing things for our country. Pilots and doctors and engineers and lawyers. And obviously the slant for me was always like writers. You know, people were writing, and whether it was in fashion, music, you know, the impact of artists in being carrying our culture and advocating for it. You know, so it was fascinating when you go, like, for example, to the Market Theatre. I remember seeing Hugh Masekela for the first time as a youngster performing at the Market Theatre, or someplace in Yeovil during the Sekunjalo concert, or the Joburg Zoo, for example, for the annual Joburg Zoo Festival. You know, you see all people from all regions of Johannesburg, all shades and queers and everything, and you just knew that you live in the most exciting city in the world, and it represented what's possible. But obviously, I mean, I think in between that, I don't know if there was actually space for people to peddle misinformation of some sort, and if so, I obviously couldn't decide.
The system will just save you out.
I don't know how. I think there was also so much quality that stuff does not rise to the top. I think right now, you know, the misinformation and the like unrooted, uncultured type of stuff just rise to the top. And I asked myself, I'm like, Aibo, isn't there like a system where this thing is vetted?
Checks and balances,
there's no checks and balances and all of that. And also, you know, there was respect of hierarchy and authority. You know, I know that right now people argue that a lot of that came with gatekeeping. But the reality of it is that at the same time, quality always rose to the top. I mean, I think even for me, with being on radio, like at Voice of Soweto, it was a lot of pressure because we were these young people, you know, our parents and a lot of like older people were like, oh, these young people, you're going to give them the mic. Oh, what are they going to say? Oh, all they know is bashes and parties and whatever. And we were so determined to like distinguish ourselves, to make it work, to be, you know, to be articulate, to be eloquent in the things that we talk about, to be, as much as we were based in the city, we wanted to be a representation of the different regions because Johannesburg, I mean, everyone comes from different parts of the city, east, west, and they land in Johannesburg. And that's what differentiated us, for example, from Soweto Community Radio, which was more focused internally in the township. So we had to reflect what it's like to be you know, a Sowetan. So it became a Sowetan as a culture, as a state of mind, versus Sowetan as in physicality.
Physical location.
Physical location, which is to an extent what the Sowetan as a newspaper was able to do.
Absolutely. You know? And speaking about Sowetan, and I think that's a classical expression of, you know, the power and the influence of when things are done properly, but there's also a longing. You know, people actually looked at Sowetan as a heading, not the reflection of Soweto.
No,
as a newspaper.
It's a state.
name.
It was a newspaper name. It's a state of mind, and it carried like you know, the essence of what it is to live in a cultural melting pot of a township southwestern of Johannesburg. And that could be anywhere of any city in this country.
Because I could be in Shoshanguve.
Yes.
I could be, in Muntsiwa.
Yes.
I could be in Palabora.
Yeah.
And I could relate.
You could relate.
With how this... so what went wrong? Shouldn't that have laid a base for even much better media environment now? I posted somewhere and said, I think we need a Methodist TV, and shout out to my Methodist people.
Yeah.
And that was coming from the environment I see, prevailing, where the creator space is moving, but there's certain fundamentals that are lacking. And I was arguing that, if SABC is repeating content with 4 TV stations, what's going to happen when they move to digital with 44 channels? And for me, having learned from this era that we are reflecting on, what have gone wrong, and how do we salvage this and actually now leverage on the opportunity that digital presents, and also the different learning platforms that are there. You don't have to now drive to the city center to be able to expose to radio. You can actually record in your own backyard.
I think individualism became a thing, and then followed by a little bit of regionalism.
Okay.
Also became a thing. And then what that does is that it ignites tribalism.
Yeah.
And then you lose a national consciousness.
And the essence of...
And the essence of, Because I think for me, I've always wanted to be a great South African cultural, creative personality who represent what it is to be a young Black woman in this country, in this continent.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean that I don't know that I'm a Mupulana, I am Pedi, who grew up in Bushbuckridge, who's lived in the east of Johannesburg, as much as, who lived in the south of Johannesburg. I think sometimes people obsess about those little things like, I'm from Katlehong, and people from Soweto think they're better. I'm like, no, actually, we were all placed there by apartheid system and treated badly. So we need to look for the similarities of what makes, us better, and for us to celebrate each other.
Yeah.
Like I take pride in what I learned when I lived in Katlehong. Like I met South Sotho speaking people for the first time from Qwaqwa. Okay. So I knew by the age 12 that in Sesotho R is Kha, and I wasn't. It didn't shock me. It didn't shock me because I lived with the Khadebes next door to me. It was not Radabi, for me. Yeah. And then I knew, like 2 houses from me, the Chilwanis. I knew that the Chilwanis are part of my clan from Bushbuckridge. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they're not a strange surname. So I knew those kind of things, and then I understood that, okay, my Njibulo has got Pedi speaking people at the school. And then I knew that once you cross that section, it's the Zulu section or Tsongas. So it's already a cultural melting pot. Yeah. So, and I think sometimes we don't appreciate being part of diversity. Yeah. And that's why for me, a lot of people are like, oh my God, you do so much. You're so multi-layered, multi-diverse, I'm like, yes. Yeah. Because I come from Bushbuckridge, where by the age of 7, I knew 5 languages. Absolutely. Across the road where my cousins who are Tsonga speaking, I could speak Tsonga. Further up when you cross Mariti has a view, it's my Swati cousins. My grandmother is of Swati heritage. Yeah. My dad, is Morocco Wamupedi, but who when they settled in Bushbuckridge lived in the Tsonga side. Yeah. So he socialized Tsonga. So my Tsonga friends would say, but you're not Libyane, you're Ribyane. I'm like, listen. Yeah. Yes, that heritage is part of me, but you can't enforce it on me because now you want to claim that. Yeah. But what it means that all of those cultural, all that heritage is a part of who I am. Yeah. I don't discard it. But I also look at the different stages of my life. I mean, I remember hearing an assembly at Tabajabula the first time they sang Dikokele in Xhosa. Yeah. You're talking about the Methodists. Absolutely. I was like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing, I have ever had. Yeah. The same thing, Setswana, deep Setswana, understanding the difference between Setswana of what Osana would speak next door, because, she was of Tswana heritage, and her husband, and then, who speak Tswana se deep sa ko Mafikeng, or Tswana sa Botswana, and then you just realize, oh my God, we're so multi-cultured and diverse.
And Penny, this for me gives a huge leverage, and that's what distinguishes, Africans, for example, from Europeans, where everything is just similar, and the ability to thrive in diversity that helps actually in propagating and sharing. Will you say the current media landscape, reflects this, and also in how we also leverage this as a selling story for our country, and our continent? The likes of Gauteng tourism, the likes of South African tourism, Brand SA. Will you say they are hopping on this, or because everybody is shunning away and taking the mainstream, which is not even African, therefore it becomes the norm?
I think, as entities like SA Tourism, Gauteng Tourism, I think you try to incorporate everything that is going on. But once you're talking media is also talks, what is, most of the time, it's influenced by society and other things that are happening. I think, because obviously Gauteng Tourism and SA Tourism are not necessarily media entities, but I think media entities have gotten lazy. I think they've gotten lazy in the newsrooms. They've gotten lazy in the strategy sessions in terms of radio and broadcasting. To really be as diverse. And to celebrate the different elements. I think they're copping out, because with audiences, you build their appetite. You would know with this show when Absolutely. You do, is that you can't wake up, you can't do shock stuff because you want to get 100 followers at day one. But you can start with 1, 2, 3, build and whatever, and you build it up, and you will get to 100, and then you'll be guaranteed that you have 100. I think with the emergence of social media, this whole thing that you could buy 500 people to follow you could buy 1 million people to follow you. So people did a lot of buying, and then they have bodies that they have bought, but those people don't engage with their content. And then obviously, for example, radio got influenced by that, where they want to gauge how many people have what, instead of what impact do people have, and where do they move the conversation of where we want to go as a people, whether it's celebrating poetry, fashion, music, writing, that you look for the different elements and essence that collectively makes us who we are, instead of you're obsessing with one dimension of our culture, and then it's like the other cultures must stop existing, because you're doing reverse apartheid. In terms of suppressing other languages. I guess because I come from the Mapulana people, Pedi people, small population, very marginalized at some state.
So you had to fight for.
So I had to fight for everything. So you basically, and then you're not fighting necessarily for yourself, and you just feel so unheard. And then it can be very easy when you live in a diverse, multicultural place like Johannesburg. I could be a cool Zulu Xhosa girl right now, but I'm not. It doesn't mean I can't converse in those languages. That doesn't mean I don't respect and understand those cultures, and I admire Afrikaans and all of that. But the reality of it is that I gotta be true to my essence, and then I look for the similarities in our diversity, and I also look for the differences, not to keep us apart, but to bring us closer. But then there's people who struggle with that because they come from regions where they don't understand that there's other cultures, so their level of appreciation is not there. They do tolerance, which can be very pretentious. And in a city, it's a city. So if it's New York,
is energy.
It's energy. In the city, diversity is energy. And I've had the opportunity to work in other cities. If you've been to London or you've been to LA or New York, Amsterdam, it's like Amsterdam. Yes, it's like no one. you can't be arguing that I'm Betty from Bushbuckridge. No one cares.
No one
you
cares.
must be you're a South African you're an African who comes from South Africa.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of people a long time to also come to but also you gotta know the different nuances and layers of what makes your people and how it connects to the bigger picture. Absolutely. So a lot of people struggle to elevate and perform to that. Yeah. And then we get let down.
And the work you do with a number of platforms you have, the charity organization, the NGOs that you are part of, I guess is also rooted on propagating this, because for me, this is what will sustain and prosperous, democratic, growing, and open South Africa that appreciate diversity and actually use it as a leverage, to power ahead of all the other spaces and actually influences the rest of the continent. The work that you do, and how does it translate into a Bushbuckridge, a Soweto, a Johannesburg, a Gauteng, a South Africa that is appreciative of the continent, and the continent going in unison to the rest of the world?
I think it's about identity and self-love. And it's about rooted in people, because people is what makes the world go round. I mean, I know we like to say money makes the world go round. People make the world go round, and the love for one another makes the world go round, and then it generates money. You know what I mean? And I think it's about that connectivity. I believe in the power of language, the power of when I say culture, I don't just mean dance and traditional clothes. I mean food.
Or 24th September.
I don't mean Heritage Day. I mean how we interact. I mean camaraderie. I mean brotherly love, sisterly love. I mean communal exchange. I mean, if you do something, I want to come and support you. Lift you up, and I lift you up. And then when you start something, I believe, oh my goodness, I gotta be there for Barba because they're building this. When someone is arriving in Johannesburg from any part of the continent, they're like, I want to know, good local great food. Where do I go? I'm just thinking, which chefs do I know that represent the different essence of our culture? They'll, I want to take them there. When they say, fashion, when I meet a fashion designer from, East Africa, West Africa, I'm like, you gotta meet our own, and then if they're I'll take you to the space. To the space. If they're making music and I'm like, oh my God, have you heard of so and so? And if they're in radio, I'm like, tell me about how it's like in your country. So all of those things are part of like what builds us and get us excited. And I've had an opportunity to, for example, when MTV came to South Africa, I was a first employee on the continent to get excited for a generation of young people that finally, I mean, at the time there was MTV America was there, Europe was there, Latin America. We were the last frontiers, Africa.
MTV Africa.
Yeah, MTV Africa, I mean, which it came as MTV Base, but technically it was MTV Africa. So the reality was like, what does it feel like to be a 20-something-year-old African anywhere in the continent who's excited about our music and finally the world getting to see us?
But that's a way to beauty pageant, that Soweto radio, that access to the magazine and the newspaper prepared you.
They prepared me for moments like that. Yes. So I would see those things as a great opportunity, not just for myself, but also for others. And then, it was so funny when you'd be wanting to convince people and say, guys, MTV is coming to Africa and then they want your music and this. And others would be like, no way, MTV will never come to Africa. I'm like, what do you mean? Yes. It's coming, I'm telling you. Yeah. And you're going to record companies and you're convincing them, give me your videos. I remember convincing Pindi to bring Lebu Matosa for a conversation, to have a meeting. And then that meeting led to her performing at Top Star when MTV launching. And she was on the cover of Time magazine and performed in Nigeria. So it's almost seeing, those little things and you realize how big it can get. Because I think I had seen it as a kid. And interacting, for example, with my late aunt Gail Hamilton, who used to produce Take 6 in the US in Nashville, mother of Zion from Liquid Deep. And you realize that that's a Grammy Award winning artist who worked on Handel's Messiah with Quincy Jones. and she's here,
Yeah.
and you have a personal relationship with her.
With that.
And people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I met her when I was like 18. I've known her my whole life.
Yeah.
And that's just a girl from Nashville who worked with Quincy Jones in New York, decided, I'm going to Africa, I'm going to live here. And that's how possible it is. And that's what, a diverse, multicultural space. But also it's a God space, because God is creativity.
It's God for everyone.
It's God for everyone.
So as we wrap up, Penny, and the work that you are doing with your multiple platforms now, will you say it's one, fulfilling, satisfying, making money? Because ultimately passion can take you somewhere, and passion open up stuff, and like you are saying all of this, and it comes from a heritage that didn't come accidentally. There was a deliberate, you invested in yourself, you went to school, you went asked questions, you didn't intend, so you got your tie, you got your juice. But how do we turn this? So how do I say Penny Lebyane and Associates operators are your go-to destination marketing company? If you want to know everything about pop culture in Gauteng, if you want to know where the quality clothing and lifestyle and style are, if you want to know where to go and you stand a chance of hanging out with the taste makers. How do we turn this into multiple business platform offerings without necessarily compromising it and then taking a different route, but retaining its authenticity so that we are able to trade with it? Some of my own reflection has been, sometimes we take these things for granted and they end up being taken
by other people.
I
mean, I think, over time I've learned that, you got to turn your ideas into business, and you got to, so even if you working with some friends, it's like you got to find a way to charge for your services, and you got to also offer it, as a service, and collaborate, a lot. For example, I mean, might not have a tour company, but I can partner with a tour company to say, listen, when I've got these type of people, I introduce them to you as a client, and therefore based on that, this is how much we charge. And so you can always have those kind of relationships, and whether you have a is it an introduction, finder's fee, type of thing. So you obviously it takes time, and I think because things are part of who we are, in essence, our culture, our everyday life, it becomes very difficult for us to charge and quantify the value of it. But I think it's getting there. I mean, I think social media has been able to help us. Earlier on you were talking about how I was part of the GP lifestyle.
The original.
GP I mean, I was just like, I would go to a place, take some videos or take some pictures, and this is where I went. And literally in today's age, it's like I can actually charge for that. You have a rate card for that. Now I have a rate card for that, whereas I didn't have a rate card then. It'll be like, okay, I'm going to use the services and whatever. But also, that has also opened up to a lot of people who just abuse that because they don't care about the business aspect of what that person does, the quality, whether it's the fashion designers. And that has also... it ruined relationships for people. But when you've been, consistent over time, and I think the satisfaction for me comes from there, is that I've built relationships over time. And sometimes I've had relationships with people and I've never done anything with them besides just support what they do, feature them on interviews. But you've become a trusted product, a trusted brand that you can go to them anytime, with anything. And I think relationship building is also crucial in that way. So, the satisfaction comes from that. And then you got to find unique ways to be able to generate income out of it. But more than anything else as well, creativity is an exchange. For example, DLO recently had a ladies branch at the exhibition Latitudes Gallery in Orange Grove. And you were sitting there with people from Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, other places. You might not be exchanging physical money, but you're exchanging leverage and knowledge and
Heritage.
network and heritage.
Yeah.
And it opens doors for you to be able to do things in other parts and meet other interesting people. Because sometimes as well, it's easy to just change, I want 250. When you can build a relationship that will make you 200 million in 5 years.
In 5
so,
years.
So you gotta also be willing to
Otherwise,
invest.
Otherwise,
yeah.
So Penny, so there's a headline. It says Soweto, the most visited place in South Africa. And the normal response is, how's that possible? From the space that we find ourselves in. How's that possible? Soweto is not safe. Kekasi, township, and the numbers showing it the other way around. How do we deal with this, especially in a space where there are multiple voices that don't care about facts?
Well, it is the most visited because, like, again, I always say to people that Soweto is not a physical place. It's a state of mind. As long as you think Soweto, Kekasi, it's a township, what makes it special, you're not going to see what makes it special. And actually, it's not just Soweto, by the way. It's other townships as well. They're like that. But as long as you keep not seeing them as that, you will never see how special they are. Like, I was in Seshego this past weekend.
Yes.
Like, I had such a great time.
Yeah,
and it's sometimes it's as simple as attending a wedding there. And then you get to see the cultural expression of the people.
Yeah.
And then the next day I went to they have a rehabilitation center. And you also see the pain of the very community.
Yeah.
But the life goes on. But back to Soweto is like, it can be, its name precedes its reality. You need to experience that place.
So like you are saying, Soweto is not a physical description.
You don't look at it as a physical description.
It's a
feeling, it's an expression, it's a state of mind. It's sister, I'll pack a mona, I'm per 5 friend, dada. Mara sister, kunke picture.
And then o
pinky, and then it's like, oh, okay, let's fine and dine. On Vilagazi. I mean, I was so upset when they closed Konka. Because I used to get a lot of friends be like, I just want to go to Konka. I'm like, yeah, it's gluttonous and everything else. But you gotta experience it.
But it's an expression,
of that. And people would come from, actually a lot of people from Soweto didn't hang out at Konka.
Yeah.
It was guys from Mamelodi,
everywhere,
Wheatbank, Polokwane. And they came there to be in that energy because it's a day into nightclub. Like, people didn't understand. They thought you go there at night. No. You go there at 12 midday. They close at 9. It's done.
As much as how you started Carlton Center.
Exactly.
Back in the day.
Back in the day, we just hanged out. After school, we'd hang out at the Carlton Center. Up, down the escalator, down. You go to Fontana Chicken, you buy chicken. So, Stack, I mean, my heart still bleeds about Kind Center. In Stack Nico there.
And we hope the inner city revitalization, the only place, by the way, where you are able to mix Mohodu and Ace of Space, Konka, Soweto, and with the disparities and the prices, that's the only place. And I guess it speaks to
that's what it represented.
And everything else that we do. Penny, as we close up, you are in music, you are in fashion, you are in media, and everything else. That one soundtrack song that, according to you, represents, the maneuvers and Mapela as a East Rand to the vibes at Tembisa, to Soweto Blues, to Riasantin, and the Jersey in Mamelodi. Oh, what is that one song that, feels it represents this golden province of Gauteng?
Oh my goodness, that's a tough one. Oh gosh, because I love, all of those areas have such a vibe.
Yeah.
They have such a vibe. One of my favorite
I know Java sang about you, but this time is about you.
Java sang about me in Mafike.
But this one is about
So I have this thing about I love there's this Brenda Fassie song, you know, Higher and High.
Yeah.
It's how it starts.
Yeah.
It's like do. It's like you gotta have a rhythm in the township. You gotta have a beat.
Yeah.
Like you can't. You gotta move with a rhythm. And then also that song says started from the bottom. I'm ending on top.
Like, the message is
and it's like that. And I think our story literally starts like that. I mean, there are those who are born in the township, and there are those who come to the township. And then wherever we come from, we come from a low base.
Absolutely.
And the base of that song, and then it's like, if you've seen the video, it's exactly like that. It's like, it's colorful, it's bright. So it's South Africa, 80s, 90s. It's like it's transitioning. It's like you're literally, that person, I think they move from just a regular girl to like, the hotter spots of and everybody when they come to the city.
And once you are higher, it's higher.
It's higher and higher. And you got to maintain that.
Absolutely. Started from the bottom and now we are here and we are flying high with the fly girl herself, Penny Lebyane. Thank you very much for gracing this platform. We really appreciate you. We celebrate you. We take you as one of our own, the original GP ambassador. Continue doing the great work and we wish you and the organization that we work for all the best.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, guys. Congratulations on this podcast. And Gauteng is beautiful, guys. Like, you got to check it out. It's everything.
Thank you, Penny. That has been another fascinating edition of Gauteng Live, your premier platform where we speak everything visitor economy, the creative sector, and how it intersects with other sectors. Don't forget to follow us at Visit Gauteng on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok. We are at I Love Gauteng on Facebook. You can also download the Visit Gauteng mobile app on App Stores and on Google Play Stores. That's where you are able to load your business. Let's showcase your business to the rest of the world for free. Until the next episode, second round.